The internet has a massive broadened career possibilities. Oh, I just forgot my thing. The internet has a massive broadened the possible space of careers. Nivi, let's look at the next tweet, which is I thought was cryptic and also super interesting about the kind of job or career that you might have. You said the internet has massively broadened the possible space of careers. Most people haven't figured this out yet. Naval, the fundamental property of the internet, more than any other single thing, it is it connection every human to teach either each other human on the planet connects every human to each other human on the planet. You can now reach everyone. Whenever by emailing them personally, whenever it's by broadcasting to them on Twitter, when it's by posting something on Facebook that they find, whenever it's by putting up a website they come and access. It's connect everyone to everyone. So the internet is an inter-networking tool. It connects everybody. That is its superpower. So you want to use that, and what that helps you figure out is internet means you can find your audience for your product or your talent and the skills no matter how far they are. For example, Ninant, who is an Elaxertus. If you just look at his videos pre-internet, how would he get the message out of there? It would just be, what would he do? He would run around where he lives in his neighborhood showing it to people on a computer or a screen, or he would try to get it played at local movie theater, right? It was impossible. It only works because he can put it on the internet. And then, how many people in the world are really interested in it? Or even interested in what we are talking about, are really gonna absorb it, right? It's going to be a very small subset of humanity. The key is being able to reach them. The internet allows you to scale any choice, any niche obsession. So, what the internet does, it allows any niche obsession, which could be just the weirdest thing. It could be like people who collect snakes, to like people who like to ride hot air balloons, to people who like to sail around the world by themselves. Just one person on a craft, or someone who is obsessed with miniature cooking. Like there's this whole Japanese miniature cooking phenomena. Or there's a show about a woman who goes into people's houses and tidying it up, right? So whatever niche obsession you have, the internet allows you to scale. Now that's not to say that what you build will be the next Facebook or reach billions of users. But if you just want to reach 50,000 passionate people like you, there's an audience out there for you. So the beauty of this is that we have 7 billion human beings on the planet, and the combinatorics of human DNA are incredible. Everyone is completely different, and you will never meet any two people who are even vaguely similar to each other that can substitute for each other. It's not like you can say, well, Nivi just left my life. Nivi just left my life, so I can have this other person come in, and he's just like Nivi, and I get the same feelings, and the same responses, and the same ideas. No, there are no substitutes for people. People are completely unique. People are completely unique. So, given that each person has different skill sets, different interests, different obsessions, and it's that diversity that becomes a creative superpower. So, each person can be creatively superb at their own unique thing. But before that, didn't matter because if you were living in a little fishing village in Italy, like your fishing village didn't necessarily need your completely unique skill, and you had to confirm to just a few people that were available. But now, today, you can be completely unique. You can go out on the internet and you can find your audience and you can build a business and create a product and build wealth and make people happy just uniquely expressing yourself through the internet. The space of careers has been so broadened. Esports players, the people making millions of dollars playing Fortnite, people creating videos and just uploading them, YouTube broadcasters, bloggers, podcasters, Joe Rogan. I read true or false. I don't know, but I read that he's gonna make about 100 millions a year on his podcast and he had 2 billion downloads. Even PewDiePie. There is a hilarious tweet that I retweeted on the other day. PewDiePie is the number one trusted name in news. This is a kid that I think in Sweden he got 3 times in the distribution of top cable news networks just on his news channel. It's not even on his entertainment channel. Escape competition through authenticity. The internet enables any niche interest as long as you are the best at it, scale out. And the great news is that because every human is different, everyone is the best at something being themselves. Another tweet that I had is that that is worth kind of waving in, but didn't go into this tweet storm, was a very small one. I like things when I can compress them. I like things when I compress them compress them down because they are easy to remember. I like things when I can compress them down because they are easy to remember and easy to hook onto. But that one was escape competition through authenticity. Basically, you're competing with people. It's because you're copying them. It's because you're trying to do the same thing. But every human is different. Don't copy. Every human is different. Don't copy. I know we're mimetic creatures. And Rene Gigard has a whole mimesic theory, but it's much easier than that. Don't imitate. Don't copy. Just do your own thing. No one can compete with you on being you. It's that simple. Nobody can compete with you on being you. It's that simple. I like the quote. And so the more authentic you are, the who you are and what you love to do, the less competition you're gonna have. The more authentic you are, what you love to do, the less competition you're gonna have. So you can escape competition through authenticity. You can escape competition to authenticity when you realize that no one can compete with you on being you. Nobody can compete with you on being you. Normally, that would have been a useless advice in pre-internet. That would be a... Alright. So post-internet, you can turn that into a career. Alright. Number 10. Play long-term games with long-term people. All returns in life comes from compound interest in long-term games. Play long-term games with long-term people. Nivi, talk a little bit about what industries you should think about working in, what kind of job you should have, and who you might want to work with. So you said one should pick an industry where you can play long-term games with long-term people. Why? Naval, yeah. This is an insight into what makes Silicon Valley works, what makes high-trust societies works. Essentially, all the benefits in life come from compound interest, whenever it's relationships, making money, and in learning. So compound interest is a marvelous force, where if you start out in X what you have, and then if you increase 20% a year for 30 years, it's not that you got 30 years times 20% added on, it was compounding. So it just grew until you suddenly got a massive amount of whatever it is. Whenever it's goodwill or love or relationship or money, so I think compound interest is a very important force. You have to be able to play a long-term game, and the long-term games are good not just for compound interest, they're also good for trust. If you look at the prisoner dilemma type games, a solution to prisoner dilemma is a tit for tat, which I'm just going to do to you what you did last time to me, with some forgiveness in case where was a mistake made. But that only works in a iterated prisoner dilemma. In other words, if we play a game multiple times, so if you're in a situation like, for example, you're in Silicon Valley where people are doing businesses with each other, they know each other and they trust each other, then they do the right by each other because they know this person will be around for the next game. Now, of course, that doesn't always work because you can make so much money in one move in Silicon Valley. Sometimes people betray each other and other because they just like, I'm going to get rich enough of this that I don't care. So there can be exceptions to all these circumstances. But essentially, if you want to be successful, you have to work with other people and you have to figure out who can you trust and who can you trust over long period of time, that you can just keep playing the game with them. So that compound interest with a high trust will make it easier to play the game and will let you collect the major rewards, which are usually all at the end of cycle. So for example, Warren Buffett has done really well and as an investor in US stock market, but the biggest reason he could do that was because the US stock market has been stable around and didn't get, for example, seized by the government during a bad administration, or the US didn't plunge into some war. The underlying platform didn't get destroyed. So in his case, he was playing a long-term game, and the trust came from the US stock market stability. When you switch industries, you are starting over from scratch. Yes, I switched my niche. I don't make animations anymore. Yeah. In Silicon Valley, the trust comes from the network of people in small geographic area that you can figure out over time who you can work with and who you can't. If you keep switching locations, you keep switching groups. Let's say you start out with woodworking industry, you built a network there and you're working hard, you're trying to build a product in woodworking industry, then suddenly another industry comes along that's adjacent but different, but you don't really know anybody in it. You really want to dive in and make money there. If you keep hopping into industries hopping from industry to, no, actually I need to open a line of electric car station for electric car refueling, that might make sense, that might be the best opportunity. But every time you reset, every time you wander out and where you built your network, you're going to be starting from scratch. I have to start from scratch, man. You're not going to know who to trust. They're not going to know to trust you. There are also industries in which people are transient by definition. They're always coming in and going out. Politics is an example of that, right? In politics, news people are being elected. You see in politics that when you have a lot of old timers like Senate, people who have been around for a long time and they have been career politicians, there are a lot of downside to careers politicians like corruption, but an upside is that they actually get deals done with each other, and because they know the other person is going to be in the same position 10 years from now on, they are going to have to keep dealing with them, so they might as well learn how to cooperate. Every time you get a new incoming freshman class in the House of Representatives, which turns out every 2 years with a big wave election, nothing gets done because a lot of fighting, because I just got here, I don't know you, I don't know if you're going to be around why should I work with you rather than just try to do whatever I think is right? So it's important to pick an industry where you can play long-term games with long-term people. So those people have to signal that they are going to be around for a long time. That's their ethical, and their ethics are visible through their actions. Long-term plays can make each other rich. All right. Nivi, in a long term game, it seems that everybody is making each other rich. And in a short term game, it seems like everybody is making themselves rich. Naval, I think that is a brilliant formulation. In a long term game, it is possible positive sum. We are all baking the pie together. We're trying to make it as big as possible, and in a short term game we're cutting up the pie. Now this is not execute the socialist, right? And this is not to excuse the socialists, right? The socialists are the people who are not involved in baking the pie, who show up at the end and say, I want a slice and I want the whole pie. They show up with guns. But I think a good leader doesn't take credit. A good leader basically tries to inspire people so the team gets the job done. Then things get divided up according to fairness, who contributed how much, as close to it as possible. So took a risk as opposed to just whoever has the longest knife, the sharpest knife at the end. Returns comes from compound interest in iterated games. Nivi. So this next two tweets are: play iterated games, all returns in life. Whenever in wealth, relationship, knowledge comes from compound interest. Nabal, when you have been doing business with somebody, you have been friends with somebody for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, it just gets better and better because you trust them so easily. The friction goes down. You can do bigger and bigger things together. For example, the simplest one is getting married to someone, having kids and raising children. The compound interest, right? Investing in those relationships end up being invaluable compared to the more casual relationships. Is true in health and fitness. The fitter you are, the easier it is to stay fit, whereas the more you deteriorate your body, the harder it is to come back. The claw your way back to the baseline, it requires heroic acts. Nivi, regarding compound interest, I think I saw retweeting something a while back. Maybe it was Ed Latimore. It went something along the line: get some traction, get purchase, and don't lose it. So the idea was to gain some initial traction and never fall back. Just keep ratcheting up and up. Naval, I don't remember it exactly, but I think that was right. Yes, it was like get traction and don't let go. It was a good one. Yes. 11. Pick partners with intelligence, energy, and integrity. You can't compromise any of this. Pick a business partner with high intelligence, energy, and integrity. Naval, in terms of picking people to work with, pick one that have high intelligence, high energy, and high integrity. Find that the three parts checklist that you cannot compromise on. You need someone who is smart, or they will head in the wrong direction. You're not going to end up with the right place. You need to have someone high energy, because the world is full of smart and lazy people. The world is full of smart and lazy people. So that's a problem, man. We all know people in our life who are really smart but can't get out of bed, lift a finger. We also know people who are very high energy but not this smart. So they work hard, but they are sort of running in the wrong direction. And smart is not a pejorative. It's not meant to say someone is smart, someone else is stupid. It's more that everyone is smart at different things. So depending on what you want to do well, you have to find someone who is smart at that thing. So then energy. A lot of times people are unmotivated for a specific thing, but they are motivated for the other things. So for example, someone might be really unmotivated to go to a job, to sit in an office, but they might really motivated to go paint, right? Well, in that case, they should be a painter. They should be putting art up to on the internet, trying to figure out how to build a career out of it, out of that, rather than wearing a collar around their neck and going in a dreary job. Then then high integrity is the most important, because otherwise, if you got the other two, what you have is you have a smart and hardworking crook who is eventually going to cheat you. So you have to figure out if the person is high integrity. And as we talked about, the way you do that is through signals. The signals is that what they do, not what they say. Yes, signals. You have to analyze their signals, what they do and what they say. It's not, it's all non-verbal stuff that they do when they think nobody's looking. Motivation has come to intrinsically. Navy. With respect to energy, there was this interesting thing from Sam Altman a while back where he was talking about delegation, and he was saying one of the important things for delegation is delegate the people who are actually good at thing that you want to help them. They want them to do. The most it's the most obvious thing, but it seems like you want to partner with people who are naturally going to do the thing that you want them to do. Naval, yeah, I almost want to start a company or hire a person or work with somebody if I just didn't think they are into what I want them to do. Alright. When I was younger, I used to try and talk people into things. I had this idea that you could sell someone into doing something. But you can't. You can't keep them motivated. You can get them inspired initially. It might work if you are a king like Henry the Five, and you are trying to get them just charge into battles, then they will figure it out. But if you're trying to keep someone motivated for a long term, that motivation has to come intrinsically. You can't just create it, nor can you be crutch for them if they don't have the intrinsic motivation. So you have to make sure that people actually are high energy and want to do what you want them to do, and what you want to work with them on. Integrity is what someone does despite what they say they do. Integrity is what someone does despite what they say they do. Reading signals is very, very important. Signals are what people do despite what they say. So it's important to pay attention to subtle signals. We all know that socially, if someone treats a waiter or a waiter in a restaurant really, really bad, then it's only a matter of time that they will treat you badly. If somebody screws over an enemy and is vindictive towards them, well, it's only a matter of time before they redefine you from a friend to an enemy. You feel their worth. So angry, outraged, vindictive, short-term thinking. People are essentially that way in a many interaction in real life. People are oddly consistent. That one of the things that you can learn about them. So you want to find long-term people. You want to find people who seems irrationally ethical. For example, I had a friend of mine whose company I invested in, and the company failed. So he could have wiped out all of the investors, but he kept putting more and more personal money in it. Though three different pivots, he put personal money in until the company finally succeed. In the process, he never wiped out the investors. And I was always grateful to him for that. I said, whoa, that's amazing that you were so good to your investors. You didn't wipe them out. And he got offended by that. He said, I didn't do it for you. I didn't do it for my investors. I did it for me. It's my own self-esteem. It's what I care about. That's how I live my life. That's the kind of person you want to work with. Another quote I like, I have a tweet on this. I think I read this somewhere else. So I'm not talking credit for this. Huh? Huh? Oh, stand. এই যে এটা এটা আমার দেখ আমি বলেছি নি So, good people, moral people, ethical people, easy to work with people, reliable people tend to have very high esteem because they have a very good reputation with themselves. They understand that it's not ego. Self esteem and ego are two different things because ego can be underserved, but self esteem, at least you feel like you're lived up to your own internal moral code of ethics. So, it's very, very hard to work with people who end up being low integrity. It's hard to figure out who is high integrity and low integrity. Generally, the more someone is saying that they are moral, ethical, high integrity, the less likely they are to be that way. It's very much like status signaling. But if you overly bid for status, if you overly talk about being high status, that is a low signal move, low status move. If you openly talk about how honest, reliable, and trustworthy you are, you're probably not that honest and trustworthy. That is a characteristic of con man. So yeah, pick an industry in which you can play long-term games with long-term people.
মামা এটা সিম্পল না দিতে আলাম দিতে আসলে খালি ফিরি ফিরি কাম করে
12. Partner with rational optimists. Don't partner with cynics and pessimists. Their beliefs are self-fulfilling. Don't partner with pessimists. Navy. Let's do this last tweet. You said don't partner with cynics or and pessimists. Their beliefs are self-fulfilling. Yes, essentially to create things you have to be rational optimist. Rational in a sense that you have to see the world for what it really is, and yet you have to be optimistic about your own capabilities and your capability to get things done. We all know people who are consistently pessimistic, who will shoot down everything everyone in their life has helped has the helpful cynical guy, right? He thinks he's being helpful, but he's actually being critical and he is a downer on everything. Don't work with pessimists. They're worst. The people will not only never do anything great in their life, they will prevent other people around them for doing something great. They think their job is to shoot holes in things, and it's okay to shoot holes in things as long as you come up with a solution. There's also a classic military line: either lead, follow, or get out of the way. Either lead, follow, or get out of the way. That's it. I like the quote. But don't become a pessimist. And these people want a fourth opinion where they don't want to lead, they don't want to follow, they don't want to get out of the way. They want to tell you why the things is not going to work. And all the really successful people I know have a very strong action bias. They just do the thing. The easiest way to figure out if something is viable or not is by doing it. At least do the first step and the second step and the third and then decide. So if you want to be successful in life, creating wealth and having a good relationships or being fit or even being happy, you need to have an action bias towards getting what you want. Partner with rational optimists, and you have to be optimistic about it, not irrationally. You know there is nothing worse than someone who is foolhardy and chase something that's not worth it. That's why I say rational optimist, but you have to be rational. Know all the pitfalls, know the downfalls, but still keep your chin up. You got one life on this planet. Why not try to build something big? This is the beauty of Elon Musk and why I think he inspires so many people. It's just because he takes on really, really big, audacious tasks and he provides an example for people to think big. And it takes a takes a lot of work to build even small things. I don't think the corner grocery store owner is working as any less hard than Elon Musk or pouring any less sweat or toil into it. Maybe even more. But for whatever reason, education, circumstances, they didn't get the chance to think as big. So the outcome is not as big. So it's just better to think big, obviously, rationally, within your means. Stay optimistic. The cynics and the pessimists, what they're really saying, it's unfortunate, but they are basically saying, I have to give up. I don't think I can do anything. And so the world to me just look like a world where nobody can do anything. So why should you do something? Because if you fail, then I'm right, which is great. But if you succeed, then you just make me look bad. We descended from pessimist. We are descended from pessimist. Navy, yes, it's probably better to be an irrational optimist than it is to be a rational cynic. Naval, there's a completely rational frame on why should be an optimistic. Historically, if you go back to 1,000 years or 5,000 years or 10,000 years, two people are wandering through a jungle and they hear a tiger. One an optimist and say, oh, it's not headed our way, and the other say, I'm a pessimist, I'm out of here. And the pessimist runs and survives, the optimist gets eaten. So we are descended from pessimists. We are genetically hardwired to be a pessimist. But modern society is far, far safer. There are no tigers wandering around the street. It's very unlikely that you will end up in total ruin. Although you should avoid total ruin. Much more likely that the upside is unlimited, the downside is limited. So adapting to for modern society means overriding your pessimism and taking slightly rationally optimistic bet because the upside is unlimited. If you start the next SpaceX or Tesla or Uber, you can make billions of dollars of value for society and for yourself and change the world. But if you fail, what's the big deal? You lost a few $1 million of investors' money and they got plenty more. That's the bet they take on the chances that you will succeed. It made sense to be a pessimistic in the past. It makes sense to be an optimistic today. Especially if you're educated and living in a first world country, even a third world country. I actually think the economic opportunities in a third world country are much larger. Oh, this man is saying every word that I like to hear. The one thing you have to avoid is the risk of ruin. Ruin means stay out of jail. So don't do anything that's illegal. It's never worth it to wear an orange jumpsuit. And stay out of total catastrophic loss. That could mean that you stay out of things that could be physically dangerous or hurt your body. You have to watch your health and stay out of things that can cause you to lose all of your capital, all of your savings. So don't gamble everything on one go. But take rationally optimistic bet with big upsides. Nivi. I think there's people that will try and build up your ideas and build on your ideas no matter how far-fetched they might seem. And then there are people who list all the obvious exceptions no matter how obvious they are. And fortunately, in the startup world, I don't even really get exposed to the people that are giving you the obvious exceptions and all the reasons it's not going to work. I barely get exposed to that anymore. Naval, that's what Twitter is for. Scott Adams got so annoyed by this that he came up with that phrase, an acronym, which is But of course, there are obvious exceptions. Bok Tawe. And he used to pin that acronym at the end of his article for a while. But Twitter is an overrun nitpicker where, exactly as you were pointing out, Silicon Valley has learned that the upside is so great that you can never look down on the kid who is wearing a hoodie and has a coffee on his shoe and just look like a slob because you don't know if he's going to be the next Mark Zuckerberg or the next Reid Hoffman. So you got to treat everybody with respect. You got to look up to every possibility and opportunity because the upside is so unlimited and the downside is so limited in the modern world, especially with financial assets and instruments. Arm 30. Arm yourself with specific knowledge. Specific knowledge can be found by pursuing your genuine curiosity. Specific knowledge can be found by pursuing your genuine curiosity. Arm yourself with specific knowledge. Do you want to talk to do you want to talk a little bit about the skills that you need in a particular specific knowledge, accountability, leverage, and judgment? So the first to it in this area is arm yourself with specific knowledge, accountability, and leverage. I will throw in judgment as well. I don't think you covered that in a particular tweet, Naval. If you want to make money, you have to get paid at scale. And why you? That's accountability. At scale, that leverage. Just getting paid as opposed to somebody else getting paid, that's specific knowledge. So specific knowledge is probably the hardest thing you get across in the whole tweet storm. It's probably the thing that people get most confused about. The thing is that we have this idea that everything can be taught. Everything can be taught in school. It's not true that everything can be taught. In fact, the most interesting thing cannot be taught, but everything can be learned. And very often that learning either comes from some innate characteristics in your DNA. It could be through your childhood where you learn soft skills which are very very hard to teach later in life. It's something that is a brand new, so nobody else knew how to do it either. It's true on the job training because you're pattern matching into highly complex environments, basically building judgment in a specific domain. Classic example is investing, but it could be anything. It could be in judgment in running a fleet or truck. It could be judgment in weather forecasting. So specific knowledge is the knowledge that you care about, especially if you are later in life. Let's say you post 20, 21, 22, you almost don't get to choose which specific knowledge you have. Rather, you get to look at what you have already built by the point at the time. Then you can build on top of it. I like the quote. Let's just highlight this. Specific knowledge can't be trained. The first thing to notice about specific knowledge is that it can't be trained for it. If you can be trained for it, if you can go to a class or learn a specific knowledge, then somebody else can be trained for it. And then we can mass produce and mass train people. Heck, we can even program computers to do it. Eventually we can program robots to walk around to do it. So if that's the case, then you're extremely replaceable, and all we have to pay you is the minimum wage that you have to pay you to get you to do the when there is a lot of other takers who can be trained to do it. So really your returns are just devolve into your cost of training plus the return on investments on that training. So you really want to pick up a specific knowledge. You need your schooling, you need your training to be able to capitalize on the best specific knowledge. but the part of that you're going to get paid for is the specific knowledge. Specific knowledge is found by pursuing your curiosity. For example, someone who goes and gets a degree in psychology and then becomes a salesperson. Well, if they were already a formidable salesperson, a high grade salesmanship to begin with, then the psychology degree is a leverage. It armed them and then they do much better at sales. But if they were always an introvert, never very good at sales, they are trying to use psychology to learn sales, they are not going to get that. They're just not going to get that great at it. So, specific knowledge is found much more by pursuing your innate talent, your genuine curiosity, and your passion. It's not by going to school for whatever is the hottest job. It's not for going into whatever fields investors say it's the hottest. Oh, I just loved it, man. Very often, specific knowledge is at the edge of knowledge. It's also stuff that's just being figured out or really hard to figure out. So if you're not 100% into it, somebody else who is 100% into it will outperform you, and they won't just outperform you by a little bit, they will outperform you by a lot, because now we are operating the domain of ideas. So compound interest really applies, the leverage really applies. So if you're operating with 1000 times leverage, somebody is right 80% of time, somebody is right 90% of time. The person who is right 90% of time will literally get paid hundreds of time more by the market because of the leverage and because of the compounding factor being correct. So you really want to make sure you're good at it, and so that genuine curiosity is very important. Build specific knowledge will feel like play to you. So often it's not something you sit down and then you reason about. It's more found by observation. You almost have to look back on your life and see what you are actually good at. For example, I want to be a scientist, and that is where a lot of my moral hierarchy comes from. I view scientists sort of at the top of production chain for humanity. And the group of scientists who have made real breakthroughs and contributions that probably added more to human society, I think, than any single other class of human beings. Not to take away anything from art or politics or engineering or business, but without the science, we would still be scrambling in the dirt, fighting with sticks and trying to start fires. আসলে আমাদের বেশিরভাগ ইমপ্রুভমেন্টই হয়েছে সায়েন্স দিয়ে. My whole value system was built around scientists. I want to be a great scientist, but when I actually look back at what I was uniquely good at and what I ended up spending my time doing, it was more around making money, tinkering with technology, and selling people on things, explaining things, talking to people. Oh, I like this. I like this. So I have some sales skills, which is form of specific knowledge that I have. I have some analytical skills around how to make money, and I have this ability to absorb data, obsess about it, break it down, and this is a specific skill that I have. I also just love tinkering with technology, and all of this stuff feels like play to me, but it looks like work to others. I just love reading books, especially psychology books. So I can say it is my thing. Yeah, your natural talents really matters. I know that I can't be Elon Musk, but I'm good at design. I can design things, I can make a business out of it. So it is my innate talent. So yeah, innate talent is a thing. You should look for it. So there are other people to whom these things would be hard, and they say like, well, how do I get good at being petty and selling ideas? Well, if you're not already good at it, or if you're not really into it, maybe it's not your thing. Focus on things that you're really into. This is ironic, but the first person to actually point out my real specific knowledge was my mother. She did it at aside talking from the kitchen, and she said I wasn't like 15 or 16 years old. I was telling a friend of mine that I want to be a astrophysicist. And she said, "No, you're going to go into business." I was like, "What? My mom telling me I'm going to be a business? I'm going to be an astrophysicist." Mom doesn't know what she's talking about. But my mom knew exactly what she was talking about. She already observed that every time we walked down the street, I would critique the local pizza shop on the way they are selling their slices a certain way with the certain topping, why their process of ordering was the way it should have been that way. So she knew that I had more of a business curiosity mind, but then my obsession with science combined to create technology and the technology business where I found myself. You combine things, man. So often, your specific knowledge is observed and often observed by other people and who know you well and revealed in situations rather than something that you come up with.
イコノミクスとタワまでイコノミクスとタワをハルカバトラメントですね。イラハルカバトラコールというマクロタークスのライディアスビジネスメントもプレイ
40. Specific knowledge is highly creative or technical. Specific knowledge is on the bleeding edge of technology. Specific knowledge is on the bleeding edge of technology, art, and communication. Specific knowledge can be taught through apprenticeships. Naval. To the extent that specific knowledge is taught, it's on the job. It's through apprenticeships. That's why the best businesses, the best careers, are the apprenticeships or self-taught careers, because those are the things society still has not figured out how to train and automate yet. The classic line here is that Warren Buffett went to Benjamin Graham when he got out of school. Benjamin Graham was the author of Intelligent Investor and sort of modernized and created value investing as a discipline. Warren Buffett went to Benjamin Graham and offered to work for free. And Graham said, "Actually, you're overpriced. Free is overpriced." And Graham was absolutely right. When it comes to a very valuable apprenticeship like the type that Graham was going to give Buffett should have been paying him a lot of money. That right, this tells you that those were skills worth having. Specific knowledge is often highly creative or technical. Specific knowledge also tend to be technical and creative. It's on the bleeding edge of technology, on the bleeding edge of art, on the bleeding edge of communication. Even today, for example, there are probably meme lords out there who are on the internet who create incredible memes, and that will spread the idea to millions of people. Or there are persuasive. Scott Adams is also is a good example of this. He's essentially becoming one of the most credible person in the world by making accurate predictions through persuasive arguments and videos. And that is a specific knowledge that he has built up over the years because he got obsessed with the hypnosis when he was young. He learned how to communicate through cartooning. He embraced Periscope early. He's been practicing a lot of conversation. He read all the books on the topic. He employed it in his everyday life. If you look at his girlfriend, she's this beautiful young Instagram model. That is an example of someone who has built a specific knowledge over the course of his career. It's highly creative. It has eliminated of being technical in it, and it's something that is never going to automate it. No one is going to take that away from him because he's also an accountable under the one brand of Scott Adams. He's operating with leverage of media with Periscope and drawing Dilbert cartoons, writing books. He has massive leverage on the top of that brand, and he can build wealth out of it. He wanted to build additional wealth beyond what he has. Specific knowledge is specific to individuals and situations. Nevi, should we be calling it unique knowledge, or does specific knowledge somehow make more sense for it? Naval, I came up with this framework when I was really young. We're talking decades and decades. It's now probably 30 years. So the time specific knowledge is stuck with me. So that is how I think about it. The reason I didn't try and change it because every other term that I found for it was overloaded in a different way. And specific knowledge isn't about use. I can kind of rebrand it. The problem with unique knowledge is, yeah, maybe it's unique, but if I learn it from somebody else, it's no longer unique. Then we both know it. So it's not so much that it's unique. It's that it is highly specific to the situation. It's specific to individuals. It's specific to the problem. It can only be built as a part of larger obsession, interest, and time spent in that domain. It can't be just read straight out of single book, nor it can be taught in a single course, nor it can be programmed into single algorithm. You can't be too deliberate about assembling specific knowledge. Nivi, engineering. Speaking of Scott Adams, he got a blog post on how to build your career by getting in, say, the top 20 percentile at the time or more thing. By doing it, you become the only person in the world who can do those things in the 25th percentile. So instead of trying to be the best at one thing, you just try to be very good at three or more things. Is that a way of building a specific knowledge? Naval, I think the best way to just to follow your own obsession somewhere in the back of your mind. You can realize that actually this obsession I will keep an eye out of commercial aspects of it. But I think if you go around and try to build a little too deliberately, if you become too goal oriented on the money, then you won't pick the right thing. You won't actually pick the thing that you love to do, so you won't get too deep enough into it. Scott Adams' observation is a good one. Predicted on statistics. You won't actually pick things that you love to do. You won't go deep enough into it. I love this quote. Scott Adams' observation is a good one. Predicted on statistics. Let's say there is 10,000 areas that are valuable to the human race today in terms of knowledge to have the number one in those 10,000 slots is taken. Someone is likely to be number one in each of those 10,000 unless then you happen to be one of the 10,000 most obsessed people in the world. That at given thing. But when you start combining, well, the number 3728 with a top-notch sales skill, I really good writing skills, and someone who understands accounting, finance really well, when the need for that intersection arrives, you expand it enough for 10,000 through combinatories to millions and tens of millions, so it just becomes much less competitive. Also, there's diminishing returns, so it's much easier to be top 5 percentile at 3 or 4 things than it is to be literally the number one at something. Build specific knowledge where you are natural. Build a specific knowledge where you're natural. All right, I'll build my specific knowledge where I'm natural. I think it's very pragmatic approach, but I think it's important that one one not start assembling things too deliberately, because you do want to pick things where you are natural. Everyone is natural at something. We're all familiar with that phrase, a natural. Oh, this person is natural at meeting, or man or women, or this person is natural at socialite, this person is natural at programmer, this person is natural reader. So whenever you are natural at, you want to double down to and onto that. But then there are probably multiple things you're natural at, because personalities, humans are very complex. We want to be able to take the things that you are natural at, combine them, so you automatically, just through sheer interest and enjoyment, end up in the top 25% or top 10% or top 5% at number of things. Learn to sell, learn to build. If you can go to do if you can do both, you will be unstoppable. Learn to sell, learn to build. Nivi, talking about combining skills, you said that you should learn to sell and learn to build. If you can do both, you will be unstoppable. Naval, this is a very broad category. It's two broad categories. One is building the product, which is hard. It is multivariate. It can include design, it can include development, it can include manufacturing, it can include logistics, procurement. It can even be designing and operating a service. It has many, many definitions. But in every industry, there is a definition of builders. In our tech industry, it's the CTO, it's the programmer, it's the software engineer, it's the hardware engineer. But even in laundry business, it could be the person who is building the laundry service, who is making the trains run on time, who is making sure all the clothes end up in the right place at the right time, and so on. The other side of sales, it is sales. The other side of it is sales. Again, selling has a very broad definition. Selling doesn't necessarily mean selling individual customers. It can be meaning marketing, it can be meaning communicating, it can be meaning recruiting, it can mean raising money, it can mean inspiring people, it could be even me doing PR. It's a broad umbrella category. The Silicon Valley model is a builder and seller. So generally, the Silicon Valley startups model tend to work best. It's not the only way, but it is probably the most common way when you have two founders, one of them whom is world class at selling, one of whom is world class at building. Examples are, of course, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak with Apple. Gates and Allen probably had similar responsibilities early on with Microsoft. Larry and Sergey probably broke down along these lines. Although it's little different there, because that was a very technical product delivered to the end users through a simple interface. But generally, you will see the pattern repeated over and over. There's a builder and there's a seller. There's a CEO and there's a CTO combo. The venture and the technology investors are also almost trained to look for this combo whenever it's possible. It's a magic combination. If you can do both, you will be unstoppable. The ultimate is when one individual can do both. Then when you become a true superpower. And that's when you get people who can create entire industries, like Elon Musk. The living example is Elon Musk. He may not necessarily be building the rockets himself, but he understands enough that he actually makes technical contributions. He understands the technology well enough that no one is going to snow him on it. He's not running around making claims that he doesn't think he can eventually deliver. He may be optimistic on the timelines, but he thinks this is within reasonable for delivery. Even Steve Jobs delivered enough product skills and was involved enough in the product that he almost operated in both of these domains. Larry Ellison started as a programmer and I think wrote the first version of Oracle, or was actually heavily involved in it. Mark Anderson was also in this domain. He may not have had enough confidence in his sales skills, but he was the programmer who wrote Netscape Navigator, or a big chunk of it. So I think the real giants in any field are the people who can both build and sell. I would rather teach an engineer marketing than a marketer engineering. And usually the the building
I would rather teach.
an engineer marketing than a marketer engineering. You can't teach a marketer engineering, but you can teach an engineer marketing because engineering takes a lot of mental stress to learn to build things. And usually the building is a thing that a salesperson can't pick up later in life. It requires too much focus time, but a builder can pick up selling a little bit later, especially if they were already innately wired to be a good communicator. Bill Gates famously paraphrases this as, I'd rather teach an engineer marketing than a marketer engineering. I think if you start out with a building mentality, you have building skills. It's still early enough in your life. You have enough focus time that you think you can learn selling. You have some natural characteristics, or you're good salesperson, then you can double down on those. Now your sales skills could be in different than traditional domain. For example, let's say you are really good at engineer, then people are saying, well, now you need to be able to good at sales. Well, you may not be good at hands to hand sales, but you may be really good writer. Writing is a skill that can be learned much more easily than saying in person selling, or you can may just be cultivate writing skills until you become good online communicator, then use that for your sales. On the other hand, it could just be that you're good at building, you're just bad at writing, and you don't like communicating to mass audience, but you're good at one-on-one. So then you might use your sales and skills for recruiting, for fundraising, which are more one-on-one kinds of endeavors. This is pointing out that if you are at intersection of these two, you don't despair, because you're not going to get best technologist and you're not going to get the best salesperson, but the weirdest way, that's combination. Back to Scott Adams' skill stack. The combination of two skills is unstoppable. Long term, people who understand the underlying product and how to build it and can sell it, there are catnip to investors. These people can break down walls if they have enough energy. They can get almost anything done. Nivi, if you could pick one to be good at, which would you pick? Naval. When you're trying to stand out from the noise, building is actually better because there are so many hustlers and salespersons who have nothing to back them. When you are starting out, when you're trying to be recognized, building is better. But much later down the line, building gets exhausting because it is a focused job. It's hard to stay current because there's always new people and new products coming up who have newer tools, and frankly, more time because it's very intense. It's very focused task. So sales skills actually scale better over time. Like for example, if you have a reputation of for building a great product, that's good. But when you ship your new product, I'm going to validate it's based on the product. If you have a reputation for being a good person to do the business with, and you're persuasive and communicative, then the reputation almost becomes self-fulfilling. So I think if you only had to pick up one, you can start with building and then transition to selling. This is a cop out answer, but I think that is actually the right answer. Read 16. Read what you love until you love to read. You should be able to pick up any book in the library and read it. Read what you love until you love to read. Nivi, before we go and talk about accountability and leverage and judgment, you got a few tweets further down the line. I would put in the category of continuous learning. There is no skill called business. Avoid business magazines and business class and study microeconomics, game theory, psychology, persuasive ethics, mathematics, computers. There's one other comment that you made in Periscope, that was you should be able to pick up any book in the library and read it. The last tweet in this category was reading is the faster than listening and doing is faster than watching. Whoa, what a line, man! Reading is faster than listening. And doing is faster than watching. I like it. I like it. Naval. Yeah, the most important tweet on this I don't even have in here is unfortunately, which is the foundation of learning is reading. I don't know a smart person who doesn't read and read all the time. And the problem is, what do I read? How do I read? Because for most people, it's a struggle, it's a chore. So most people think is just to learn how to educate yourself. The way to educate yourself is to develop a love for reading. So the tweet is that is left out is the one that I was hinting at. Read what you love until you love to read. It's that simple. Everybody know who reads a lot of who reads a lot love to read. They love to read because they read books that they loved. It's a little bit of catch 22, but you basically want to start off just reading whenever you are, and then keep building up from there until reading becomes a habit. Then eventually we will get bored of the simple stuff. So you may start off reading fictions, then you might graduate to science fiction, then you may graduate to non-fiction, then you may graduate to science or philosophy or mathematics or whatever it is. But take your natural path. So just read the thing that interests you until you kind of understand them. Then you naturally move to next thing and next thing and the next thing. Read the original scientific books in a field. Now there is an exception to this. Whenever where I was hinting with what thing you actually do want to learn, which is at some point there is too much out there to read. Even reading is full of junk. Yeah, read the original scientific books in field. I don't fear science. There are actually things you can read, especially early on, that will program your brain a certain way. Then later things that you read, you will decide whenever those things are true or false based on earlier things. So it is important that you read foundational things, and foundational things I would say the original books in a given field that are very scientific in their nature. Foundational things, read foundational books. For example, instead of reading a business book, pick Adam Smith Wealth of Nations. Instead of reading a book on biology or evolution that's written today, I would pick Darwin's Origin of Species. Instead of reading a book on biotech right now, that may be very advanced, but I would just pick up the Eighth Day of Creation by Watson and Crick. Instead of reading advanced books on what cosmology and what Neil deGrasse Tyson and Stephen Hawking have been saying, you can pick up Richard Feynman's 6 easy pieces and start with the basic physics. Oh man, I like everything. I like every word out of it. I'll just pink it. Pink. Cute. Don't fear any book. This should be don't fear any book. This should be in red. If you just understand the basics, especially in mathematics and in physics and science, then you will not be afraid of any books. All of us have that memory of when we're sitting in class and we're learning mathematics and it was all logical and all made sense until at the point the class moved too fast and we fell behind. Then after that, we are left memorizing the equations and memorizing the concepts without being able to derive them from the first principles. And at that point, we're lost because unless you're a professional mathematician, you're not going to remember all the things. All you're going to remember are the techniques and the foundations. That's so true, man. I left science because of this thing. You just get lost. Get lost and just suddenly you just lost everything. So you have to make sure that you're building on a steel of frame of understanding, because you're putting together a foundation for skyscrapers. You're not just memorizing things, because you're just memorizing things, you're lost. So the foundations are ultra important. So the foundations are so important, man. If you don't understand the foundations, you're not going to remember more. And the ultimate is when you walk into a library and you look at it up and down. You don't fear any book. You know that you can take any book off in the shelf, you can read it, you can understand it, you can absorb them. What is true, you can reject what is false. You have a basis for even working that out, that is logical and scientific, and not purely just based on opinions. The means of learning is abundant. The desire to learn is scarce. The beauty of the internet is the entire library of Alexandria times 10 is at your fingertips all the time. It's not the means of education or the means of learning are scarce. The means of learning are abundant. It's the desire to learn is scarce. So you really have to be cultivate the desire. I got you, man. I got you. And it's not even cultivating you. You have, you have to not to lose it. Children have a natural curiosity. If you go to a young children who is first learning language, they're pretty much always asking, what is this, what is that, why is that, who is that. They're always asking questions. But one of the problem is that schools and our education system, even our way of raising children, replaces curiosity with compliance. And once you replace the curiosity with compliance, you get an obedient factory worker. But you no longer get a creative thinker. You need creativity. You need the ability to feed your own brain to learn whatever you want. Yes, I like the comment again. The foundations are the math and logic. Mathematics and logic are the basis for understanding everything else. The ultimate foundation are math and logic. Naval. Foundational things are principles, they are algorithms, they are deep seated logical understanding where you can defend it or attack it from any angle. That's why microeconomics is important, because macroeconomics is a lot of memorization, a lot of macro bullshit. As Nassim Taleb said, it is easier to macro bullshit than it is the macro bullshit, because macroeconomics is a voodoo complex science meets politics. You can't find two macroeconomists to agree on anything these days. Different macroeconomists get used by different politicians to peddle their different pet theories. There are even macroeconomists out there now peddling something called modern monetary theory, which is basically say, hey, except for this pesky thing called inflation, we can just print all the money that we want. Yes, except for this pesky things called inflation. That's like saying, except for limited energy, you can fire rockets off into space all day long. It's just nonsense. But the fact that there are people who have macroeconomist in their title are peddling modern monetary theory, just telling you that macroeconomics as the so-called science has been corrupted. It's now a branch of politics. So you really want to focus on the foundations. The ultimate foundation are mathematics and logic. If you understand logic and mathematics, then you have the basis for understanding the scientific methods. Once you understand the scientific methods, then you can understand how to separate truth from falsehood in other fields and other things that you're reading. It's better to read a great book slowly than to fly through 100 books quickly. Oh, আমি এটা আরো 100 বার পড়বো। সরি 100 বার না 10 বার পড়বো যা। So be very careful about reading other people's opinions. Even be careful when reading facts because so-called facts are often just opinions when with a veneer around it. Actually, be careful reading other people's opinions because you're just reading someone's opinions. So don't take it literally. You have to judge it, then you adopt it. Don't just adopt everything. What you're really looking for. What you're really looking for are algorithms. What you're really looking for is understanding. It's better to go through a book really slowly and struggle and stumble and rewind than it is to fly through it quickly and say, well, now I have read 20 books, I have read 30 books, I have read 50 books in this field. Yes, this is just flexing. You read 50 books, 100 books. This is just flex. Don't flex. Just read one book, but fully. A better book. Read one better book fully and understand the concepts, man. Because you have to apply those concepts in your life. So you don't have to read 100 books. You can read the one best book and just apply the physics in your real life. It's like Bruce Lee said, I don't fear the one man who knows 1,000 kicks and 1,000 punches. I fear the man who practiced one punch 10,000 times or one kick 10,000 times. It's that understanding of that comes through repetition and through usage and through logic and the foundation that really makes you a smart thinker. Learning persuasion and programming. To lay a foundation for learning for the rest of your life, I think you need two things. If I was going to try and sum it up, one, practical persuasion, and two, you need to go too deep into some technical category. Whenever it's abstract math, you want to read Donald Krunt books on algorithm, or you want to read famous lectures on physics. If you have a practical persuasion and a deep understanding of some complex topics, I think you have a great foundation for learning for the rest of your life. Naval, yeah. In fact, let me expand that a little bit. I would say that 5 most important skills are, of course, reading, writing, arithmetic, and then you are adding in persuasion, which is talking. Persuasion, I think persuasion means just negotiating. It's talking about this thing. You have to, your ability to deal with people is very important. And then finally, I would add computer programming, just because it is applied form of arithmetic. That just gets you so much leverage for free in any domain that you operate in. If you're good with computers, if you're good with basic mathematics, if you're good at writing, if you're good at speaking, if you like reading, you're set for life. You're set for life, man. I just need these things. That's it. I don't care. There is no actual skill called business. 18. Point number 18. Avoid business schools and magazines. There is no actual skill called business. In that sense, business is, to me, is the bottom of barrel. There's no actual skill called business. It's too generic. It's like a skill called relating, like relating to humans. That's not a skill. That's too broad. A lot of what goes into business schools, there's some very intelligent stuff taught in business schools. I don't mean to detract from them completely, but some of them things taught in business schools are just anecdotes. They call them case studies, but they're just anecdotes. They're trying to help you patterns to match by throwing lots of data points at you. But the reality is you will never understand them fully until you actually in that person position yourself. Until you actually in that position yourself. Even then, you will find that basic concept from the game theory, psychology, ethics, mathematics, computers, and the logic will serve you much and much better. So I'd focus on the foundations. I would focus with a science bent. I would develop a love for reading, including by reading so-called junk books that you're not supposed to read. You don't have to read the classics. That is the foundation for your self-education. That reading is the foundation for your self-education. Doing is faster than watching. Doing is faster than watching. 100% agree. Nivi, what did you mean when you said doing is faster than watching?
There was podcast. Podcast transcript किया कुछ.
ना बोयस
Podcast है वो वही लगे.
पीडीएफ बना दिया जिस Naval. When it comes to your learning curve, if you want to optimize your learning curve, one of the reasons I don't love podcast, even though I am a generator of podcast, is that I like to consume my information very quickly. And I'm a good reader and a fast reader. I can read very fast and I can only listen to certain speed. I know people listen to 2x, 3x, but everyone sounds like a chipmunk. It's hard to go back, it's hard to highlight, it's hard to pinpoint a snippet and save them in your notebook, so on. Similarly, a lot of people think they can become really skilled at something by watching what others do. Even by reading about others doing it, going back to the business school case study, that's a classic example. They study other people's business, but in reality, you are going to learn a lot more about running a business by operating your own lemonade stand or equivalent, or even opening a little retail store down the street. That's how you're going to learn on the job, because a lot of subtleties don't express themselves until you are actually in the business. For example, everyone into mental model these days. You go to Farman Street, you go to Poor Charlie's Almanac, you can learn all the different mental models, but which one matters more? Which one do you apply more often? Which one matters in the circumstances? That's actually the hard part. For example, my personal learning has been that the principal agent problem drives so much in this world. Principles. Elon Musk always talk about this. The first principles, what matters. It's an incentive problem. I have learned that tit for tat, iterated prisoner dilemma is the piece of game theory that is worth knowing the most. You can almost put down the game theory book after that. Game theory bookটা তো পড়তে হবে। এটা 2-3 বার বলছে এটা পড়ার কথা। By the way, the best way to learn game theory is to play a lot of games. Oh, the best way to learn game theory is to play a lot of games. I never even read game theory books. I consider myself extremely good at game theory. I never opened up a game theory book and found a result in there. I didn't think, oh yeah, that's a common sense to me. Reason is that I grew up playing all kinds of games and I run into the kind of corners cases, all kinds of friends. It's just second nature to me. You can always learn better by doing it on the job. The number of doing iteration drive the learning curve, but doing is a subtle thing. Doing encapsulates a lot. For example, let's say I want to learn how to run a business. Well, if I start a business, whenever I go in every day, I'm doing the same thing. Then say I'm running a retail store down to the street where I'm stocking the shelves with food and liquor every single day. I'm not going to learn that much because I'm repeating the same thing a lot. খালি চালু করলেই হইব না, তোমার লার্নিং কার্ভ যদি ঠিক না থাকে। যেমন এমন So I'm putting in thousands of hours, but they are thousands of hours doing the same thing. Whereas if I putting the thousand of iterations, that would be different. So the learning curve is across iteration, not iterations. So if I was trying a new marketing experiment is in the store all the time, I was constantly changing up the inventory. I was constantly changing up the branding, the messaging. I was constantly changing the sign. I was constantly changing the online channel that are used to drive foot traffic. I was experimenting with being open at different hours. I had the ability to walk around and talk to other owners and getting their books and figure out how they run their businesses.
Bro, it's a Samsung phone. It's not working at all.
It's the number of iterations that drives the learning curve. So more iterations you can have, the more shots and goals you can have. You're going to learn. It's not just about the hours to put in. Gotcha, man. Gotcha, Naval. If you're willing to bleed a little every day, you may win big later. Just bleed every day a little. I'll bleed a lot because I want to be Elon. I mean, I can't be Elon. I'm just Mahfuj. Let's see. It's actually a combination of the two, but I think just the way we're built, the way that world presents itself, the world offers us very easily the opportunity to do the same thing over and over again. But really, would better be served if we went off and found a way to do new things from scratch. And doing something new the first time is painful because you're wandering into uncertain territories and high odds that you will fail. So you just have to get very, very comfortable with the frequent small failures. That's just a fact, man. Nassim Taleb talks about this also. He made his fortune, his wealth, by being a trader who's basically relied upon black swans. Nassim Taleb made money by losing the little bits of money every day, and then once in a blue moon he would make a lot of money when the unthinkable happened for other people. Whereas the most people want to make a little bit of money every day. In exchange, they tolerate a lot of blow up risk. They'll tolerate going completely bankrupt. I also like this, man. I like it. We are not evolved to bleed a little bit every day. We're not evolved to bleed a little every day. If you are out in the natural environment and you get a cut and you literally bleeding a little every day, you will eventually die. You will have to stop that cut. We evolved for small victories all the time, but that becomes very expensive. That's where the crowd is. That's where the herd is. So if you are willing to bleed a little every day, but in exchange you will win big later, you will do better. That's it. By the way, entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs bleed every day. Ha ha ha. I love bleeding. I love bleeding. They are not making money, they are losing money. They are constantly stressed out. All the responsibilities is upon them. But when they win big. On the average, they will make more. Embrace accountability to get leverage. Take risk under your own name and society will reward you with leverage. You need an accountability to get leverage. Navi, why don't we jump into accountability, which I thought was pretty interesting, and I think you have your own unique take to it. So the first tweet on accountability was embrace the accountability and take business risks under your own name. Society will reward you with responsibility, equity, and leverage. Naval, yeah. So to get rich, you're going to need leverage. Leverage comes in labor, comes in capital. It can come through code or media, but most of this, like labor and capital, people have to give to you. For labor, somebody has to follow you. For capital, somebody has to give you money or asset to manage or machines. So to get these things, you have to build up credibility. So you have to do those under your own name as much as possible, which is risky. So accountability is a double-edged thing. It allows you to take credit when things go well, to bear the burnt of failure when things go badly. Take risks under your own name. So, in that sense, people who are stamping their names on the things aren't foolish. They're just confident. Maybe it turns out to be foolish in the end, but if you look at the Kanye or Oprah or Trump or Elon, anyone like that, these people can get rich just by their name, because their name is such powerful branding. Regardless of what you think of Trump, you have to realize that the guy was among the best in the world just branding his name. Why would you go to Trump casinos? Used to be because of Trump. Why would you go to Trump Tower? Because of Trump. When it came time to vote, I think that a lot of voters just went in and just said Trump. They recognized the name, so the name of recognition paid off. Same thing with Opera. She put her brand on something, her name on something, and it flies off the shelf. It's like an instant validator. These people also take risks for putting their name out there. Obviously, Trump is now probably hated by half or more than half of the country, by a big chunk of the world, as he sticks his name out there. By putting your name out there, you become a celebrity, and fame has many downsides. It's better to be anonymous and rich than be poor and famous. But even famous and rich has a lot of downsides and associated with you're always in the public eye. A well-functioning team has a clear accountability for each position. Accountability is quite important. When you're working to build a product, you are working in a team. You're working in a business. You're constantly have drummed into our heads how important it is to be a part of Team. Absolutely agree with it. A lot of our training socially is telling us to not stick our necks out of the world. There's a lot of saying that I hear from our Australian friends that the tall puppy gets cut, don't stick your neck out. But I would say that actually a really well functioning team is small and has clear accountability for each of the different portions. You can say, okay, this person is responsible for building the product, this person is responsible for messaging, this person is responsible for raising money, this person is responsible for pricing the strategy, maybe the online advertising. So if somebody screws up, you knew exactly who is responsible. While at the same time, if somebody goes really well, you also know exactly who is responsible. If you have a small team and you have a clearly delineated responsibilities, then you can still keep a very high level of accountability. Accountability is really important. Because when something succeeds or fails, if it fails, everybody point fingers at each other, and if it succeeds, everybody step forward to take credit. We all had that experience when we were in school. We got a group of assignment to do. There were probably a few people in there who did a lot of work. Then there are a few people who just did a lot of grandstanding and positioning to do the work. We're all familiar with this form a childhood sense, but it's sort of uncomfortable to talk about. People who can fail in public have a lot of power. Clear accountability is important. Without accountability, you don't have an incentive. Without accountability, you can't build your credibility. But you take risk. You take risk of failure. You take risk of humiliation. You take risk of failure under your own name. Luckily, in modern societies, there's no more debtors, prisons, or people don't go to jail or get executed for losing the other people's money. But we're still socially hardwired not to fail in public under our own names. The people who have the ability to fail in public under their own names actually gain a lot of power. For example, I will give a personal anecdote. Up until 2013-14, my public personnel was entirely around startups and investing. Only around 2014 to 50, I start talking about philosophy, psychological things, and broader things. It made me a little nervous because I was doing it under my own name. There were definitely people in the industry who sent me messages through the back channel like, "What are you doing? You are ending your career. This is stupid." I kind of just went with it. I took a risk. Same with crypto. Early on, I took a risk. But when you put your name out there, you take a risk with certain things. You also get to reap the rewards. You get the benefits. Take accountability to earn equity. If you have high accountability, you will live less replaceable. Accountability is how you're going to get equity. Naval, accountability is important because that's how you're going to get leverage. That's how you're going to get credibility. That's how you're going to get equity. You are going to get piece of business when you are negotiating with other people. Ultimately, if someone else is making a decision about how to compensate, that decision will be based on how replaceable you are. If you have a high accountability, that makes you less replaceable. Then they have to give you an equity, which is a piece of the upside. Taking accountability is like taking equity in all your work. Equity is itself is a very good example because equity is also a risk-based instrument. Equity means you get paid everything. After all, people who need guaranteed money are paid back. If you look at the hierarchy of capital in a company, the employees get paid first. They get paid the salary first. In legal bankruptcy proceeding, the salaries are sacrosanct. If you are a board member and the company spent too much money and has back salaries to pay, the government can go after you personally to pay back the salaries. The employees get the most security, but in exchange for that security, they don't have as much upside. Next in line would be the debt holders who are maybe the banker who lend money to the company for operating, and they need to make their fixed coupon every month or every year, but they don't get much more upside because that they might be making 5, 10, 50, 20% a year, but that's what their upside is limited to. Finally, there are equity holders. These people are actually going to get most of the upside. One of the debt holders are paid off and the salaries are paid off. Whatever remains goes to them. But if isn't enough money to pay off the salaries and debt holders, if there is just barely enough to pay off the salary and the debt holders, which is what happens to the most businesses most of the times, the equity holders gets nothing. The equity holders take on greater risk, but in exchange they get nearly unlimited upside. You can do the same with all of your work. Essentially, taking accountability for your actions is the same thing as taking equity position in all of your work. You are taking greater downside risk for greater upside. Realize that in modern society, the downside risk is not that large. Even personal bankruptcy can wipe the debt clean in good ecosystems. I'm most familiar with Silicon Valley, but generally people will forgive failures as long as you're honest and made a high integrity effort. There is not really that much to fear in terms of failure, so people should be taking a lot of more accountability than they really actually are. Navy, is accountability actually fragile, or do you really just mean that we are hardwired to not to fail in public, so it just feel like it's fragile thing? Naval, I think it could be actually be fragile, and an example of accountability is you are an airplane pilot. As a captain, you're taking on accountability for the entire plane. Let's say that something goes wrong with the aircraft. You can't later blame it to anyone else. You can't blame it to the steward on the stewardless. You can't blame it to the co-pilot. You are the captain. You are responsible for the ship. If you are a screw up, you crash the ship, and there are immediate consequences. In the old days, the captain was expected to go down the ship. If the ship was sinking, then literally the last person who got off was the captain. I think accountability does come with real risk. But we're talking about a business context. The risk here would be that you would probably the last one to get your capital back out. You would be the last one to get paid for your time. The time that you put the capital that you put into your company, these are what are at risk.
আমার লেভেল ছাড়াই লাগবে কয়দিন পর।
Even if a business fails, that your name on it, that's not that bad. If turns out to be an integrity issue, Bernie Madoff, for example, Madoff investment, that name is never going to be good again in the investment community. You could be Bernie Madoff great grandson. You're not going to go into the investment business because he ruined the family name. I think these days accountability risk with the name happens more around integrity rather than it does around purely economic failures.